Hey guys, tonight we're going to slip through the echoing halls of medieval justice and discover what happened to women who dared to break the sanctity of marriage. Picture yourself, barefoot on cold, uneven cobblestones, the smell of wood smoke, and horse sweat thick in the air. The church bells toll in the distance, but they're not calling you to prayer, they're calling you to penance. You're a woman who's been caught red-handed or maybe just read rumor Dan. The punishment that awaits you isn't just a slap on the wrist. It's a spectacle, a lesson to the rest of the town that the price of forbidden love can be as heavy as iron itself. And let's be honest, you probably won't survive this without a few scars in your skin and your pride. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd also love to know where you're listening from tonight. Drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel the hush settle over the room, the weight of countless eyes on you as the town crier's voice rises in the square. He's announcing your crime, your name, and the sentence that's about to unfold like a grim theater. The air smells of iron and sweat, of damp earth and secrets. You're not just another villager anymore, you're the cautionary tale that everyone will whisper about for weeks. Historians still argue whether medieval punishment was more about law or spectacle. But tonight, for you, it's both. The first whispers come not from a judge, but from the gathered crowd. You catch snippets. "She's been with the blacksmith," someone murmurs. "No wonder he's so quiet now." The gossip stings more than the icy breeze. One mainstream historical fact: in many medieval towns, the punishments for adultery were woven into the very fabric of daily life. The church condemned it as a mortal sin, while secular law saw it as a threat to the social order. And for a woman, well, let's just say the scales weren't exactly balanced. A quirky little tidbit to warmer chill your bones. In some parts of Europe, there were special adultery stones, where you'd be forced to stand and confess, your feet sinking into the worn grooves of countless other transgressors. Imagine the shame carved into the very rock beneath your toes. Your heart pounds and you try to focus on the world around you, but it's a blur. The village square is alive with color banners flutter, children peek from behind their mother's skirts, and somewhere, a dog barks in the distance. You feel like you're in the middle of a festival, except this celebration is for your humiliation. A soft joke for you. If medieval punishment had a Yelp review, it'd probably be 1 star would not recommend, very public, no refunds. You shuffle your feet, and the rough stone of the pillory looms ahead, ready to embrace you. But that's a story for the next section. Right now, you're just a woman with her head bowed, the weight of the crowd's judgment pressing down like 1,000 hammers. The evening air is thick with wood smoke, drifting from the hearths of nearby homes. You wonder if those same fires will be used to heat the irons that will mark your skin. Or maybe they're just for warmth, for comfort. You envy those safe behind their shutters, where scandal is a story, not a sentence. The crier's voice booms again, a rhythm of accusation and condemnation. You swallow hard, your throat dry as the dust kicked up by the horses that brought you here. You wish for a drink, a moment of peace, but all you get is the chill of the stone beneath your bare feet and the certainty that there's no turning back. And so, with a final clang of the bell, the square settles into a tense quiet. You're no longer just a name whispered in the dark, you're a living lesson, a punishment waiting to be written in the history of your bones. You feel the rough grain of the pillory's wood against your skin as they lock your neck and wrists into place. It's not just a piece of punishment furniture, it's a stage, and tonight, you're the unwilling star. The sky above is bruised with twilight, and every color seems to sharpen, from the deep blue of the sky to the flickering orange of torches held by the crowd. The pillory stands in the center of town, a monument to discipline and shame. Your neck aches already, but it's the murmurs that sting more than any physical discomfort. You can almost taste the sour air of the crowd's curiosity, feel the scorn of the baker's wife, who's always been a little too interested in your private life. The pillory, you'll be interested to know, was a staple of medieval punishment, a mainstream historical fact. It was used not just for adultery, but for theft, gossip, or even failing to bake bread to the right weight. Fair warning, baking an underweight loaf might get you a few hours in here too. As your head droops forward, you hear the scrape of a boot across the cobbles and the harsh snort of a donkey tied nearby. The donkey, at least, seems sympathetic, eyes soft, as if to say, I know a prison when I see one. A fringe tidbit to amuse you. In some towns, a condemned woman was forced to wear a garland of nettles around her neck, adding the sharp sting of nature to the humiliations of man. You wonder if it was worse than the pillory's rough wood, or maybe the nettles offered a sort of natural perfume, something to distract you from the laughter. And, oh, there's laughter. Children point and giggle, emboldened by the safety of their parents' hands. A man hawks roasted chestnuts from a brazier, the sweet scent drifting over you like a cruel taunt. It's a market day, and your shame is just another form of entertainment. Historians still argue whether the pillory was meant to be purely punitive, or if it was also a chance for the community to reaffirm its own virtues. You're living proof that for them, it's a little bit of both. Your punishment becomes a mirror for their own piety. Look at her. Look what she did. We're not like that. A quick quip to lighten the load. Buy one punishment, get 1,000 insults free, you mutter to yourself, though you know better than to let the words slip past your lips. The wooden frame creaks as you shift, and a splinter lodges itself in your skin. It's a small pain compared to the heat of 100 eyes, but it's one more indignity. You try to focus on the rhythm of your breath, in and out, but each inhale tastes of ash and shame. You think of your home, the rushes on the floor, the flicker of the hearth. Would you ever see it again? Or is this the start of something worse? The pillory isn't the end for some women, just the first stop on a long, humiliating road. The man who fastened the stock she's the town constable, a man who smells of ale and onion, smirks as he tests the lock. Good and tight, he says, and you almost wish he'd choke on the words. But you swallow your fury, it's all you have left. The crowd shifts, restless. Some throw bits of stale bread, a few aim carefully with rotten fruit. It's not enough to hurt, just enough to let you know you're less than them now. You feel a splat of mushy apple slide down your cheek, sticky and sweet. You don't even bother to wipe it away. And so you stand, a living statue in the town square, a lesson wrapped in flesh and bone. You know you'll be here until the sun is high tomorrow, or maybe until someone takes pity or grows bored. Either way, your name is now written in the dust of the pillory's floorboards and in the memories of every soul who passes. As the night deepens, the air grows colder, and you shiver. Not from fear, no. Not anymore, but from the simple fact that you're human. And this wooden stage is as cold as the hearts around you. The sun rises slowly, painting the sky in streaks of gold and pink. And with it, your shame is renewed in the bright morning light. You're still locked in the pillory, your neck stiff and aching. The townspeople are stirring now, returning to the square to see if you're still a living cautionary tale. The town crier is already up, his voice loud and clear as he walks the square, announcing your crime to everyone who didn't have the pleasure of seeing it the night before. Adulterous, he calls out, his voice echoing off the stone walls. Let it be known this woman betrayed her vows. Your stomach twists. You can't help but wonder what your husband is doing right now, if he's at the edge of the crowd, silent and ashamed, or if he's nowhere to be found, washing his hands of you entirely. This walk of shame is older than you'd guess. One mainstream historical fact: in medieval England, the town crier's public proclamation was a legal part of the punishment. Your sin wasn't just a secret between you and your lover. It was a story for everyone. The square is full of the smells of breakfast bacon crackling, bread baking in the communal oven, and it all feels wrong. A festival around your pain. A fringe tidbit: in some places, your punishment would include walking barefoot through the streets while carrying a candle as a symbol of penance. You wonder if the warm wax would be a blessing or a curse in the cold dawn air. Historians still argue whether these punishments actually deterred others from following in your footsteps. Some say it worked. Fear is a powerful thing. Others insist it only drove the sin deeper underground, hidden behind closed doors instead of banished altogether. A light joke for you. Even here, you think of medieval town criers as the original social mediano privacy settings. No chance to delete or block the haters. The crier's voice fades, but the memory of his words clings to you. You're not just a woman anymore. You're a lesson, a headline, a story for the next generation to whisper over firesides. The constable comes to unlock the pillory, but it's not mercy, just a transition. Time to walk, he says, his voice as cold as the iron key he uses. You stagger as the stocks open, your legs stiff and trembling. They don't give you a moment to steady yourself before the walk begins. The crowd forms a path down the street and avenue of shame and you're at the center. They don't push or shove. They don't need to. Their eyes are enough. The stones beneath your feet are wet with last night's rain, slick and cold. You try not to slip, try to keep your head up, but it's hard. Your hair, what's left of eye things in clumps around your face, tangled and damp. A woman spits at your feet as you pass, her face twisted with something that looks almost like triumph. You wonder if she's felt this same fear, this same weight of judgment. Or maybe she just likes knowing it's you, not her, in the stocks today. You're forced to walk slowly, every step measured by the constable's heavy tread behind you. He calls out your crime every few paces, a grim chorus to the silent march. Adultery, he says again and again, the word slamming against your ears like a hammer. You try to keep your thoughts small, focused on the next step, the next breath, but they creep in anyway. What will happen when this walk is done? Will there be more punishment? Or will they let you go, let you fade back into the edges of town life forever marked? You pass the blacksmith's forge, the heat of the coals brushing your skin, and you remember the rumors that started this whole nightmare. They said you've been seen slipping through the alley behind the forge, that your laughter had been heard in the dark. You wonder now if the blacksmith's wife is watching, if she's the one who started the whispers. The path winds on, past the market stalls where fish glisten on wooden boards, past the chapel where the priest stands at the door, his eyes solemn but not surprised. The priest has heard every confession, every secret sin, but he says nothing. Noah's silence is as heavy as any spoken curse. As the walk finally ends, you find yourself back where you started, the pillory looming behind you, the crowd still hungry for your shame. The constable's hand on your shoulder is as heavy as the iron of the stocks. You know this isn't the end though, not yet. You're led to a small wooden stool in the square, your legs weak and your mind still spinning from the endless echoes of Adulterous. The crowd parts just enough to let you see the shears glinting in the constable's hand. It's not enough for them to see your shame, they want to take it a step further. They want to make sure every time you see your reflection, you'll remember this day. Hair shearing, you realize, isn't just about hair. It's about power, about the symbol of your place in the world. In medieval times, a woman's hair was her glory long, shining, a sign of her virtue and her value. To lose it in front of everyone is a punishment that clings to your bones. A mainstream historical fact for you. In parts of medieval Europe, shaving or cutting a woman's hair was a common punishment for adultery. It was meant to mark her as fallen, to take away the beauty that was once her shield. The constable's hand isn't gentle. The cold metal of the shears bites against your scalp, and you feel each lock fall away, light as breath but heavy with shame. The crowd leans in, hungry for the moment the final strands fall and you're left as exposed as the day you were born. A small, mocking quip bubbles up in your mind. At least I won't have to worry about tangles anymore. But the thought dies before it reaches your lips. There's no room for laughter here. A fringe tidbit to make you shiver. In some towns, they didn't just cut your hair, they burned it in the square as if to cleanse your sin with fire. The scent of scorched hair was a grim perfume that clung to the air for days. Historians still argue whether this act was more about punishment or control. Some believe it was a way to erase a woman's power and independence, to strip her of the very thing that made her visible. Others say it was simply another layer of humiliation, a final flourish in the theater of shame. The shears close again and again, and you feel the cold wind against your bare scalp. You can't help but flinch as the last pieces of hair drift to the ground like autumn leaves. It's a small death to your old self, your old dignity, gone with each snip. When the constable steps back, he holds up a handful of your hair for the crowd to see. They murmur, some nodding in approval, others turning away as if embarrassed by the spectacle they demanded. But no one steps forward to help you. No one ever does. The shears are set aside, but the punishment isn't done. They hand you a rough hood, scratchy wool that smells of old sweat and smoke. You're told to wear it until you've paid for your sin in full. It's a mark of your crime, a sign that even in the quiet moments, Even when the crowd is gone, you'll still be carrying the weight of their scorn. As you pull the hood over your head, the world grows smaller, the sounds of the square muffled and distant, but the memory of the shears of the blade against your skin is as sharp as the cold steel itself. You're led back to the edge of the square, where you're made to stand in silence. No one throws fruit now, they've seen enough. Or maybe they're just bored, already turning their attention to the market stalls and the promise of fresh bread. The constable's eyes linger on you, a flicker of something like pity or maybe just a fleeting moment of doubt, but it's gone as quickly as it comes. His duty is done, and you're left to stand alone, a monument to the dangers of desire. The sun is high now, casting long shadows across the square. You watch them stretch and twist, wondering if you'll ever be able to step out of yours. A final thought before we move on. In a world that measured a woman's worth by her hair, her virtue, and her obedience, a punishment like this wasn't just a sentence, it was a theft. A theft of self, of pride, of the small comforts that made life bearable. And so you stand, the weight of the hood on your head, the memory of the shears on your scalp, and the knowledge that this is only one step on a much longer road. You're barely given time to steady your breath before they bring forth the next device of humiliation, the scold's bridle. It's an iron cage, twisted and harsh, shaped to encase your head like some monstrous crown. You swallow hard, the bitter tang of fear thick on your tongue. The scold's bridle, also called the brank, was no idle threat. A mainstream historical fact, it was originally used to punish scolds, or gossips, women whose words were considered too sharp for a man's comfort. But here and now, in your story, is repurposed for your crime adultery, because who better to muzzle than a woman who strayed? The constable holds the bridle up for all to see. It gleams dully in the sunlight, and you notice the small plate that will rest against your tongue, designed to silence you completely. You'd laugh at the absurdity of it if your heart wasn't hammering like a blacksmith's forge. A fringe tidbit to add to the chill of the iron, some bridles were fitted with small bells. As the punished woman moved, the bells would jingly, cruel melody of shame that drew every eye to her plight. Imagine that, your every step singing your disgrace to the world. Historians still argue whether the scold's bridle was used more for gossip or adultery. Some say it was a catch-all tool, a way for men to enforce silence and control. Others insist it was mostly for loud mouths, not loose hearts. You, of course, don't get a say in the matter. No one asks you. The iron is cold as they lower it over your head, pressing down on your hairless scalp. The weight of it is almost comforting in its finality. No more rumors, no more half-heard whispers. Just the quiet darkness of the bridle's cage. You feel the tongue plate press against your mouth, forcing you to bite down, to submit. A small joke flickers in your mind. Talk about having nothing to say for yourself, but you let it die there. This isn't a time for jokes. The bridle's iron edges pinch your cheeks, the sharp bite of metal, a constant reminder of what you've lost. Your voice, your dignity, your name all wrapped up in the rusted cage around your head. The crowd is quieter now, the novelty of your punishment replaced by a more somber curiosity. Children stare wide-eyed, their parents holding them back, not out of kindness, but to teach them the lesson in your silence. You're led through the square again, each step measured and slow. The weight of the bridle pulls at your neck, and you can't look up. You're forced to see only the ground, the dust, and mud that mirror the mess your life has become. A donkey brays somewhere in the distance, a mournful sound that almost makes you smile. Almost. But there's no room for smiles here. As you walk, you remember the stories you heard as a child, tales of witches and sinners, of women who strayed and paid the price. You never thought you'd be one of them. But the iron cage around your head says otherwise. The bridle isn't forever, you're told. Just long enough for you to remember your place, long enough for the town to decide you've learned your lesson. But what lesson is there to learn when all you're allowed to do is suffer in silence? The constable's heavy hand on your shoulder steadies you as you walk. He doesn't speak. There's nothing to say. Your crime has been judged, your punishment is playing out, and the crowd is already looking for the next scandal to whisper about. You try to focus on the feel of your feet against the stones, the rhythm of your breath, the distant jingle of the blacksmith's hammer. Small things to ground you, to remind you that you're still here, still alive, if only barely. A final whisper of history for you. Some women who wore the scold's bridle were paraded from door to door, forced to beg forgiveness from every household. You're spared that final indignity, at least for now. But the iron on your head is a promise that says you'll never forget the price of your mistake. And so you walk, the world narrowed to the weight of the bridle, the hiss of the crowd, and the bitter taste of shame. You walk because there's nothing else you can do. When they finally remove the scold's bridle, your mouth is dry and your lips are cracked. You're left with red welts along your jaw and a raw feeling in your throat that makes even a soft breath feel like an accusation. But there's no relief in the air, no kindness in the sudden freedom of your mouth, just the knowledge that another punishment is waiting. They bring out the branding iron next. You see it from a distance, the shape of it blurred by the heat rising from the coals. It's a small iron, the handle long and blackened by years of use. The tip glows an angry orange, and you feel your stomach twist in a way that has nothing to do with hunger. A mainstream historical fact. In medieval Europe, branding was used to mark criminals and outcasts, thieves, heretics, and yes, adulterous women. It wasn't about pain, although there was plenty of that. It was about memory. A brand didn't fade like gossip. It stayed with you, written in your skin, for the rest of your life. The constable steps forward, the iron in his hand. The crowd hushes, the air thick with the scent of singed hair and sweat. You can feel the heat from here, like a sun pressed too close to the earth. A fringe tidbit to add to the horror: some towns believed the shape of the brand mattered. A letter A for adulterous, a cross for a moral crime, even a shape of a rose like a cruel joke that your sin had somehow been romantic. The brand was as much a story as it was a scar. Historians still argue whether the brand was meant to warn others or simply to mark you as property of the town, of the church, of your husband's wounded pride. You, of course, don't get to join in the debate. You just brace yourself for the pain. You're pushed to your knees, the rough cobblestones biting into your skin. The constable doesn't speak. There's nothing to say. The iron is answer enough. The world seems to slow as the brand moves closer. You feel the warmth on your skin before you feel the pain, a searing flash that rips a scream from your lips before you can even think to swallow it. The smell is the worst part. The sickening stench of your own flesh turning to ash. A quick, bitter joke flickers in your mind. At least they're branding me a classic, not a bestseller. But the thought dies as the pain roars in your veins. The brand is pulled away, and the cool air hits the burn like ice. You gasp, your body curling in on itself, but the constable is already pulling you upright. There's no time for comfort, no chance to cradle the wound. The punishment must be seen. They show the brand to the crowd, your new mark glistening, angry, red, and black. Some turn away, pretending at shame or pity, but others stare openly. They want to remember this moment. They want to remember you. The constable's eyes meet yours for just a moment, and you see something there, doubt maybe, or just the reflection of your pain. But he says nothing. He's just the arm of the law, not the heart of it. The brand will heal, but it will never vanish. You'll carry it like a banner, a badge of disgrace that no water can wash away. Even if the skin fades to pale pink, the memory of the burn will stay with you, a ghost in your flesh. You're given no water, no salve. Your hands tremble as you cradle your wound, the heat of it pulsing with every beat of your heart. You wonder if the mark will change you, if it will become a part of who you are, or just another piece of you that's been stolen. As the crowd begins to drift away, bored at last with your suffering, you're left standing in the square. The constable turns away to speak to a merchant, his duties already shifting to the next petty theft, the next scandal to punish. You stand alone, the sun bright on your head, the brand still fresh and angry on your skin. You're not sure what comes next, only that it will be another chapter in this long, cruel tale. A final thought before the next turn of the page. In a world that prized obedience and chastity, a brand wasn't just a punishment, it was a promise. A promise that your body was no longer your own. That every eye you meet will see not a woman, but a lesson. And so you stand, the iron's kiss still burning in your mind, waiting for what comes next. The brand still smolders on your skin when they bring out the ducking stool, a contraption that seems almost comical at first glance. It's a simple wooden chair fixed to a long beam, balanced over a deep pond at the edge of the town square. But as you're led toward it, the laughter in your mind dies. There's nothing funny about the cold embrace of water, nothing gentle about this next lesson. A mainstream historical fact. The ducking stool was originally used for scolds and suspected witches, but in some towns, it found new purpose as a punishment for women caught in adultery. It was meant to cool the hot passions that had led you astray, to wash away your sin in water so cold it steals your breath. The constable's grip on your arm is firm, but not cruel. He's done this before. You can see it in the way he checks the ropes, the calm efficiency of his movements. This is just another day for him, another woman, another sin to wash clean, a fringe tidbit to make you shiver. Some towns believe that if a woman survived 3 dunks without confessing her sins anew, she was deemed innocent, at least in the eyes of the water. Of course, innocent didn't always mean free. Historians still argue whether this punishment was meant to purify or to humiliate. Some see it as a test of endurance, a twisted trial by water. Others argue it was simply an excuse to break a woman's will in front of everyone she knew. You're helped pushed, really onto the wooden seat. The ropes bite into your arms and legs, holding you in place as the chair creaks under your weight. The pond below is dark and still, a mirror of the sky above. You can't see the bottom, but you can feel the chill radiating up to meet you. A small, absurd joke flickers in your mind. At least it's not bath day. But there's no room for laughter here, only the cold certainty of what's to come. The crowd gathers again, their voices a low hum of anticipation. Some cross themselves, as if to ward off the sin they're about to witness. Others lean forward, hungry for the moment you vanish beneath the water. The constable gives the order, and the stool tilts. For a moment, you're weightless, balanced on the edge of air and water. Then the world rushes up to meet you in a sudden, icy embrace. The shock steals your breath, the cold biting into your skin like 1,000 needles. You struggle, instinct taking over, but the ropes hold you fast. Your lungs burn, your vision blurs, and for a moment, you wonder if this is IF, this is how your story ends. But then the stool jerks back up, the ropes creaking as they pull you out of the water. You gasp, your mouth open wide, but there's no relief in the air. Only the cold and the knowledge that you're about to go down again. The constable doesn't wait long. Before you can catch your breath, the stool tilts again and you're plunged back into the dark. This time, you hold your breath, your body rigid with the need to survive. You think of the brand on your skin, of the bridle that caged your tongue, and you tell yourself, you will not let this be the thing that breaks you. You lose count of how many times you're dunked. The water is everywhere in your nose, in your ears, in your mind. When they finally pull you out for the last time, you're shaking so hard you can barely see. But you're still here, still breathing. The crowd is quieter now, their curiosity sated. The constable's face is blank, but you see the way his hand trembles as he cuts the ropes. Maybe he's cold too. Or maybe he just doesn't like what he sees in your eyes. A final whisper for you. In some places, the ducking stool was used not just as punishment, but as a test of character or way to see if a woman could endure humiliation and still come out the other side. You're not sure what they see in you now, but you know one thing. You're not done yet. You're helped off the stool, your legs unsteady, your body aching with cold. But your mind is clear, sharp as the iron that burned you, as the eyes that still follow you. You walk away from the pond with the taste of water and shame still on your lips, and you wonder what comes next. Because if this is the price of sin, what will the price of forgiveness be? They let you rest, but only for a moment. You're given no warm fire, no dry clothes, just the hard truth of what comes next. The punishment might be done, but the stain of your sin still clings to you, as visible as the brand on your skin. You hear whispers as you're led back through the town, your wet hair plastered to your skull, your steps squelching in sodden shoes. People avert their eyes, not out of mercy, but because they're already moving on to the next scandal, the next story. Your old news now, just another lesson in a long line of lessons. Your husband is there, waiting. He doesn't touch you. He doesn't speak. In medieval law, he's been given a choice. Keep you marked and shamed, or cast you aside like a worn out shoe. And you can see the choice he's making in the way he won't meet your eyes. A mainstream historical fact to hold in your mind: in many medieval towns, a husband could divorce his wife if she was found guilty of adultery. But it wasn't as simple as signing a paper. It was a public matter, one that involved the church and the courts and everyone who thought your business was their own. A fringe tidbit to make you sigh: in some places, a husband could take you back if he paid a fine to the town, as if your sin had a price, as if silver could wash away what water and iron could not. Historians still argue whether these laws were about justice or control. Some say they were meant to protect the sanctity of marriage. Others see them as just another way to keep women in line, to remind them that their bodies were never fully their own. Your husband says nothing, but his silence is louder than any accusation. You see the way he stands, arms folded, his jaw tight. You remember the way he used to laugh, the way his hand used to find yours in the dark. But now you're a burden he doesn't want to carry. You're told you can leave the square, but you know there's nowhere to go. Your home is no longer yours, it belongs to his pride, to the memory of the woman you were before all this began. A small bitter joke flickers in your mind. Well, at least I won't have to wash his shirts anymore. But the thought dies, choked by the taste of your own fear. You're led away, not to your home, but to the edge of the village. The constable doesn't bother with words. He just gestures, a silent command to keep moving. And you do, your legs stiff, your body aching, the brand on your skin a bright, angry promise. The path away from the village is lined with brambles and rocks, the world narrowing to the scrape of your feet against the dirt. You don't look back. There's nothing behind you but memories and whispers, and they're colder than the ducking stool's pond. The wind bites at your wet clothes, and you wonder how long it will take for the cold to seep all the way into your bones. You wonder if that's what they wanted, to chill you to the core, to freeze out every last bit of rebellion that once lived in your heart. A final thought for this moment. In a world where marriage was everything, where a woman's worth was measured by her obedience, being cast aside wasn't just a punishment. It was a death of sorts, the end of who you were, the start of something else entirely. You keep walking, the sun climbing higher, the road stretching out before you like a question you're too tired to answer. Each step takes you further from the life you knew, from the woman you used to be. You don't know where you're going, but you know you're not going back. The road out of the village is rough, but your feet find the rhythm of it, step after step, even as your thoughts swirl like leaves in the autumn wind. You're not the first woman to walk this path, and you know you won't be the last. The echoes of other feet, other stories, seem to murmur in the dirt beneath your toes. You pass a shrine at the edge of the path, a small wooden cross draped with wilted flowers. You pause for a moment, pressing your fingers to the weathered wood. It's not for you, but you whisper a prayer anyway, maybe for the woman you used to be, maybe for the one you might become. A mainstream historical fact. In the medieval world, the lines between holy law and secular law were as tangled as the brambles along this path. Church courts dealt with sins of the flesh: adultery, fornication, and all the ways hearts wandered where they shouldn't. But the secular courts had their say too, especially when pride and property were at stake. Historians still argue whether this dual system of justice helped or harmed women like you. Some say it gave more chances for mercy, more doors to knock on, more judges to plead with. Others insist it only multiplied the ways your life could be twisted and torn. You reach a small clearing, the sun warm on your bare scalp. You remember how the shears felt, the cold blade biting away the strands that once shielded you from the world. You wonder if the priests and the lords ever felt that same vulnerability when their own secrets spilled into the light. A fringe tidbit to make you pause. In some towns, the church and the secular courts would fight over who got to punish you first, like two dogs snarling over a single bone. And you were just the prize in their game. You walk on, your thoughts as heavy as the brand on your skin. You know that in some places a woman might find refuge in a convent, a life of prayer and quiet atonement. But you also know that for most women, there was no sanctuary. Just the long road ahead and the weight of a world that believed your sin was all you would ever be. A small wry joke flickers in your mind. At least the priests wouldn't argue over who got the best seat at the feast if they were too busy fighting over me. But even that small spark of humor can't warm the chill that settled in your bones. You think of the priest back in the village, his eyes solemn, his lips tight around the words of forgiveness that never reached you. You wonder if he's praying for you now, or if he's already turned his mind to the next confession, the next soul to save. The wind picks up, rattling the bare branches of the trees overhead. You pull the rough hood tighter around your head, the scratchy wool biting at your neck. You tell yourself it's just the wind that makes your eyes water. Just the wind. You hear a bell in the distance, the clear, cold chime of a chapel calling the faithful to prayer. You pause, your feet sinking into the soft earth, and you close your eyes. For a moment, you let yourself imagine that the bell is for you, a summons to a place where no one cares about your past, where you're just another voice raised in prayer. But the moment passes, and you open your eyes, the path stretches on, and you keep walking. A final thought as you leave the shadow of the village behind. In a world where your body and your name were never really yours, the road becomes your only possession. The only thing that belongs to you step after step. So you walk, each footfall a small act of defiance, a quiet promise that no matter what they've taken, you're still here, still moving forward. As you walk, the road bends and the world seems to slow. You see an old woman by the roadside, her back bent, her hands busy with a basket of herbs. She looks up as you pass, her eyes flicking to the brand on your skin, the rough hood around your head. For a moment, you wonder if she'll spit at you like the others, or if she'll look away pretending not to see. But she only nods, her lips pressed into a thin line, and you feel a flicker of something that might be respect or maybe just recognition. She's seen shame before. She knows what it looks like. A mainstream historical fact to hold on to: medieval people believed in strange devices to control women's desire. One of the most infamous, the so-called chaste belt, a locked metal contraption said to guard a woman's virtue even when her husband was away. Most historians agree it was more legend than reality, a myth woven from fear and control. But the stories still linger, like a ghost that won't be laid to rest. A fringe tidbit to make you shudder: some traveling merchants sold these belts, not as punishment, but as novelty, items a cruel joke in iron, a whispered threat to keep women pure. You wonder how many women laughed nervously as they passed them in the market, how many felt the cold weight of it in their dreams. Historians still argue whether the chaste belt was ever truly used, or if it was just a story to frighten young brides into obedience. But as you walk, you can't help but imagine the weight of that iron around your hips, the key held by someone else's hand. You pass a wayside shrine, the face of the Virgin Mary, gazing down at you with eyes of painted calm. You pause, your fingers brushing the cold stone. You whisper a prayer, not for forgiveness, no. You're done begging for that, but for strength. Strength to keep moving, to keep breathing, to keep the memory of who you were alive in the quiet spaces of your mind. A small, mocking thought flickers in your mind. At least the chaste belt would have kept the cold out. But the joke falls flat, swallowed by the hush of the forest path. You keep walking, the soft slap of your bare feet on the dirt, a rhythm that steadies your heart. The world is quiet here, the wind sighing through the trees, the distant call of a bird overhead. For a moment, you let yourself imagine that you're just another traveler, another pilgrim on the road to somewhere holy. But the weight of the brand on your skin is a constant reminder that you're not just a wanderer, you're a woman marked, a woman judged. The path bends again, and you see a small village in the distance, smoke rising from chimneys, the soft glow of hearth fires flickering in the dusk. You wonder if they'll know your story there, if the whispers have already traveled ahead of you like a dark wind, or maybe you'll be just another stranger, a woman with no past and no future. A final thought as the sun dips low. In a world obsessed with purity, with control, the chaste belt was never really about metal or keys. It was about fear of a woman's power, her desires, her choices, fear of what she might do if left to her own mind, her own heart. You walk on, the chill of the evening settling into your bones. The world is growing dark, but you keep moving. Because that's what you have now, this road, this moment, this small act of defiance with every step. And if the chaste belt was a myth, you think, then maybe there's hope that the chains they've wrapped around your name can be broken too. You reach the edge of the new village as dusk deepens, the air scented with wood smoke and cooking fires. You pause at the border, your bare feet sore from the long road, your mind even more so. This place is smaller than the town you left behind, quieter, with fewer eyes to watch you, but you know better than to hope you'll be safe here. You find a spot by the well, resting your back against the cold stone. The world is hushed in that hour before night, and you let yourself close your eyes, just for a moment. But your rest is broken by a woman's voice, low and careful, asking if you're all right. You don't answer at first, but when you open your eyes, she's still there, her face lined with worry and something else, curiosity. A mainstream historical fact to steady your thoughts. In medieval times, adultery wasn't just a sin, it could become something far more sinister. In the eyes of many, a woman who strayed from her marriage bed might also stray from God, and the line between adultery and witchcraft was as thin as the edge of a blade. A fringe tidbit that sends a shiver down your spine. In some places, a woman caught in adultery was forced to wear a wreath of thorn echoes of Christ's suffering twisted into a mockery of her own. A reminder that even the holiest symbols could be turned to cruelty. Historians still argue whether these connections were real or just the fevered fears of a superstitious world. Some say the link between witchcraft and adultery was just a convenient, excusian, easy way to condemn a woman who had already fallen in the eyes of her neighbors. Others see it as part of a larger tapestry of fear and control, a world where women's bodies were battlegrounds for the souls of men. The woman at the well doesn't ask about your mark, but you see her eyes flicker to it, a quick glance that says she knows, or guesses. She doesn't shy away though. Instead, she offers you a crust of bread, a cup of water, simple kindness, but it makes your throat ache with the force of it. You take the bread, your hand shaking, and you wonder if you should tell her to be careful. If she's seen your brand, if she knows what it means, then offering you bread is a dangerous kindness. But the words stick in your throat, and you say nothing. A small, wry joke bubbles up. At least bread doesn't ask questions. You let it sit there, a small comfort in the darkness. The woman stays only a moment longer before she leaves you there, a shadow against the well. You watch her go, the sway of her lantern light in the growing dark, and you wonder if she's the first in this new village to offer you mercy or if she'll be the last. You pull the hood tighter around your head, the wool scratchy against your scalp, and you think about the witches' tales you heard as a child. How the old women in the forest were blamed for every sickness, every misfortune. How an adulteress, already a sinner, might as well be a witch in the eyes of men hungry for a scapegoat. A final thought before you rise. In a world that feared what it couldn't control, a woman's love was a dangerous thing. They said a woman's heart could summon spirits, could curse crops, could bend the will of men. But you know the only spirits in your heart are the ghosts of your own regrets. You stand, your legs still trembling, and you walk away from the well. The night is deep now, the sky dark, and the first stars pricking through like pinholes in black velvet. You keep moving, because you have to. Because even if you're a ghost in this world, you're not done haunting it yet. The night settles around you like a cloak, the stars overhead cold and bright. You find a place to rest beneath the eaves of a half-crumbled chapel, the old stones rough against your back. You wrap your arms around your knees, the brand on your skin a hot throb in the chill night air. You can hear voices drifting from the village of laughter, the clink of mugs in the tavern. You're close enough to feel their warmth, but you might as well be a world away. You're the woman with the mark, and even the shadows know your name. A mainstream historical fact to ground you in this moment. In medieval towns, the price of mercy was often counted in silver, blood money. They called ita payment that could wipe away a crime if you had enough to offer. For a woman caught in adultery, a wealthy husband might choose to pay a fine instead of casting her aside. But for the poor, there was no coin to buy back honor, only the weight of punishment, heavy as iron. A fringe tidbit to make you pause. In some villages, the fine for adultery wasn't paid in coin, but in salt. Salt was precious, worth more than gold in some places, and a woman's sin measured in white crystals was a harsh kind of poetry. Historians still argue whether these fines were truly meant to offer mercy or simply another way for the powerful to keep their hold on the world. Some say it was justice. Others see it as just another tax on the poor, another reminder that even your sins belong to someone else. You rest your head against the cold stone, and for a moment, you let yourself dream of that kind of mercy of a world where your worth could be measured in salt or silver instead of the brand on your skin and the whispers in the dark. A small, biting joke flickers through your mind. Maybe I should have asked for a discount 2 sins for the price of 1. But the night is too quiet for laughter, and the ache in your chest is too deep. You close your eyes, and the memories slip in like cold water. The laughter of the crowd, the hiss of the iron in the coals, the moment when you realize you are no longer a wife or a woman, but a lesson to be learned. The moon moves across the sky, silver and silent, and you wonder if it sees you, if it remembers the other women who have sat like this, alone in the night, their hearts as empty as their coin purses. You think of the merchant's daughter, the one who slipped away in the night with the traveling minstrel. They say her father paid the fine, that she came home to a house of silence and cold stares. You wonder if that was mercy or just another kind of prison. A final thought before sleep takes you. In a world where everything had a price, even shame, the poor always paid more. More blood, more tears, more pieces of themselves lost in the bargain. You've paid your price in pain and humiliation, but you know the debt will never truly be settled. The night is deep and still, the air cold against your cheeks. You let your eyes drift closed, the weight of the day pulling you down, and in that moment, you make a quiet vow to yourself that no matter how far you walk, no matter how heavy the road becomes, you will not let them have the last word. The night can be theirs, but the dawn will be yours. Morning finds you still huddled by the crumbling chapel, the cold stones sapping what little warmth you'd managed to hold on to. Your body aches from the night spent on hard ground, but you rise slowly. The stiffness a small price to pay for the quiet moment of peace. You brush the dirt from your skirt, though the brand on your skin is the only mark that matters now. The village stirs around you, voices raised in greeting, the soft clatter of buckets at the well. You stand apart, unseen and seen all at once. You walk slowly through the edge of the village, the smell of baking bread, a cruel comfort. Children chase each other through the dusty lanes, their laughter bright and free in a way you can't remember feeling. Their mothers glance at you, eyes lingering on your marked skin before flicking away. You're a shadow, a story they'd rather not meet in the flesh. A mainstream historical fact to weigh against your thoughts. In many medieval villages, a mother's shame was a burden her children would carry. A woman marked by adultery saw her children's chances slip away, the whispers following them like smoke. A daughter with no dowry was bad enough, but a daughter whose mother was branded, a daughter who might be tainted by the same sin, a fringe tidbit to make your heart ache. In some places, children of adulterous unions were given different names, separate from their father's line. A quiet exile of the bloodline, written into the very words people used to call them. Historians still argue whether this was truly about sin, or if it was about power, who had it, who kept it, and who was left to pay the price when it slipped away. Some say it was meant to protect the family's honor. Others see it as another way to keep women silent, to hold them in place with the threat of what would happen to those they loved. You pause by the market square, watching the merchants set up their stalls. A woman offers you a bruised apple, her face soft with pity. You take it, your fingers brushing hers for the briefest moment. A small kindness in a world that seems to have forgotten how to be gentle. A quick, wry joke flickers in your mind. Maybe if I eat enough of these, I'll turn into Eve herself. You almost smile, but it's a fragile thing that doesn't quite reach your eyes. You move on, the apple in your hand, a quiet comfort, the sweetness of it, a sharp contrast to the bitter taste of memory. You wonder if your own children, if you had them, would have been marked by your sin, if their lives would have been measured by your mistake. The thought makes your heart twist. Because in a world where everything is counted, your hair, your silence, your sign a child's future is just another tally in a ledger you can't ever balance. You find a bench by the edge of the square and sit, the rough wood warm from the morning sun. You watch the world move around you, the small dramas of the day unfolding like a play. For a moment, You let yourself imagine that you're just another villager, another woman with a basket of bread and a child tugging at her skirts, but the brand on your skin itches, a silent reminder that you'll never be just another woman again. A final thought as you sit in the sun, in a world that weighed a woman's worth by the purity of her bloodline and the obedience of her children, a mother's shame was a curse that clung to every cradle, every wedding feast. A curse that was never really yours to begin with, but one you were forced to carry all the same. You close your eyes, the warmth of the sun on your face, a small mercy, and you promise yourself that whatever happens next, you will find a way to keep moving, to keep breathing. Because even in a world that measures your worth in whispers and scars, you are still here. As the sun climbs higher, you rise from the bench and move away from the market's hum, the weight of the brand on your skin and the memory of your children if you had any following you like a shadow. The road winds through the village, past houses of wattle and daub, their walls whitewashed and neat. At the edge of the square, a group of women gather around a washtub, their laughter bright but their eyes quick to dart away when they see you. You keep moving, your steps slow and measured. You know now that there's nowhere to hide from what you are. But there are stories in the air songs that drift from the lips of the washerwomen, tales that echo in the laughter of the children, stories of punishment, of sin, of shame. A mainstream historical fact to wrap around your thoughts: in some medieval towns, women accused of adultery were forced to wear visible symbols of their sin. Badges sewn to their clothing letters, colors, shapes that spoke of betrayal and disgrace. A mark for all to see, a warning to any who might dare to follow in your footsteps. A fringe tidbit to make you pause: in some parts of Europe, the letter A was stitched in bright red thread onto a woman's sleeve, a practice that would echo centuries later in stories and sermons. But it wasn't always an A. In some towns, it was a patch of black cloth or a scrap of yellow anything to set you apart, to make your shame your second skin. Historians still argue whether these symbols were meant to protect the community or simply to satisfy its hunger for punishment. Some say it was a lesson, a way to keep temptation at bay by showing what happened to those who gave in. Others see it as a cruel delight, a chance for those who watched to feel safe in their own virtue. You walk past a weaver's shop, the loom clacking out a steady rhythm that seems almost comforting. You wonder if she's ever sewn those marks of shame onto a sleeve, if her needle has ever been used to cut a woman's pride into colored thread. A small, sharp joke flickers in your mind. At least they're consistent, everyone gets their label, like a jar in the pantry. But the humor tastes bitter on your tongue. The world feels too bright, too loud. You duck down an alley, the walls close and cool. The shadows are a comfort here, a reminder that even in a world obsessed with visible shame, there are still places to hide, even if only for a moment. You press your hand to the wall, feeling the roughness of the plaster, the cool damp that seeps through. You let yourself breathe, just breathe, the air sharp and clean in your lungs. You remember the scold's bridle, the iron cage that bit at your skin. You remember the brand, the hiss of the iron as it kissed your flesh. And you remember that no matter how many marks they put on your skin, they can't touch the part of you that still dreams. A final thought as you leave the alley: in a world that tried to make your shame your name, the greatest act of defiance is to remember who you were before, to hold that memory like a secret flame, flickering low but still alive. You step back into the sunlight, the alley's darkness clinging to your skin like a second cloak, and you keep walking, the mark on your sleeve invisible to your eye, but heavy all the same. You walk because it's all you have left, the small, steady rhythm of your feet on the earth, the quiet promise in your heart that says, I am still here. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in colors that seem too soft, too gentle for the sharp edges of your thoughts. You leave the village behind, following a winding path that skirts the fields of barley and rye. The air smells of earth and green growing things, a sweetness that doesn't match the bitterness in your heart. Your feet find the rhythm of the path, each step a small defiance, each breath a quiet victory. In the distance, you see another traveler, on the road a merchant, his cart piled high with goods wrapped in burlap. He tips his hat as he passes, his eyes lingering on your marked skin, but he doesn't speak, and neither do you. A mainstream historical fact to anchor you in the present. Across medieval Europe, punishments for adultery varied wildly, each town and kingdom carving out its own brand of justice. In Germany, some towns forced women to stand in barrels of salt or stones, a punishment that blended pain with the slow burn of shame. In parts of France, women were made to kneel on peas or rocks for hours, the small, sharp points digging into flesh and bone alike. A fringe tidbit that lingers in your mind. In some places, the punishment was a bath in brine, the salt water stinging every cut, every brand, as if to scrub the sin from your skin. A harsh kind of baptism, a cleansing that left you raw and trembling. Historians still argue whether these foreign customs were born of genuine piety or just a hunger for spectacle. Some say they were meant to heal the community, to scrub away the stain of sin. Others see them as another performance, another way to feed the crowd's craving for the sight of someone else's pain. You find a rock by the roadside and sink down, your legs heavy, your thoughts heavier still. You remember the ducking stool, the icy slap of water, the way the world went silent beneath the surface. You remember the iron, the hiss and burn, the laughter of the crowd that echoed in your bones. You remember the crier's voice, each word a brand, as sharp as the mark on your skin. A small, weary joke flickers in your mind. At least they didn't throw me in a barrel of fish yet. But the thought dies quickly. The humor, no match for the ache in your chest. The road winds on, past fields where women bend to cut the last of the grain, their hands deft and sure. You watch them work, the quiet grace of their movements, and you wonder if they see you, if they wonder what crime you've paid for, or if they're too busy with their own burdens to care. You think of the stories you've heard, of women forced to walk barefoot through the snow, the blood from their cracked feet freezing in tiny rivulets of red, of women who carried stones in their arms until their shoulders burned and their backs bowed, of the quiet strength it took to bear each step, each breath, each moment of humiliation. A final thought as you stand and start walking again, in a world that tried to strip you of everything, your name, your pride, your worth. The only thing they couldn't take was the road beneath your feet. Each step is yours alone. Each breath, a quiet act of defiance against the world that would see you silenced. The sun sinks lower, the air cool and soft. You pull the hood tighter around your head and keep moving, the path winding on and on, each step carrying you further from the woman you once were and closer to the woman you might still become. The road leads you through a small copse of trees, the hush of the leaves above like the murmur of voices just out of reach. The path is narrow here, the ground soft with fallen leaves and old memories. You walk slowly, your bare feet brushing through the shadows, each step a soft whisper against the earth. You hear singing in the distance low and sweet, a woman's voice weaving a song that catches at your heart. You follow the sound, drawn to it like a moth to a candle flame. In a clearing, you find her, a young girl, no older than 15. Her hair a tumble of dark curls, her eyes bright with mischief and sadness all at once. She's singing a ballad you've heard before, though the words shift and twist like smoke. A song of love and betrayal, of a woman who paid dearly for a single night's passion. Her voice is soft, but each word lands like a stone in your chest. A mainstream historical fact to cradle in your thoughts. Medieval ballads often told stories of women like you women who strayed, who loved too deeply or too foolishly. Songs of warning, songs of sorrow, meant to remind every listening ear that a woman's love was a dangerous thing. A fringe tidbit to make you smile, if only for a moment. Some of these songs were sung in taverns, the verses twisted and turned by drunken mouths until the tale of an adulterous wife became a bawdy joke, a story to make the drink flow faster and the laughter louder. Historians still argue whether these songs were born from pity or pleasure. Some say they were cautionary tales meant to keep women in line. Others see them as a way for men to revel in the spectacle of a woman's fall, a reminder that her body and her shame belong to them. The girl's voice trails off as she sees you, her eyes widening as they flick to the mark on your skin. But she doesn't run. She only tilts her head as if to say, "I see you. I know." And in that moment, you feel something shift inside you, a small, bright ember of connection in a world that wants you to be alone. A soft, sardonic joke flickers in your mind. At least they're singing about me mortality in the form of a sad tune. But the thought fades quickly, replaced by the simple comfort of the girl's eyes on yours. You sit on a fallen log, your legs trembling with exhaustion. The girl sings again, softer now, the melody winding around you like a balm. You let the music carry you for a moment. Let it soften the jagged edges of your thoughts. You know the song is about shame, about punishment, about the way a woman's life can be stolen by a single choice. But in her voice, you hear something else, a quiet defiance, a promise that even in the telling of your shame, you're still here. A final thought as the song ends and the girl stands, her eyes lingering on your face. In a world that tried to turn your story into a warning, there's power in knowing that the song is still yours. That your voice, though silenced by iron and scorn, still echoes in the soft notes of a ballad sung in the dusk. You stand and keep walking, the song a memory that settles into your bones. The sun has nearly set, the sky streaked with the last of the light. The path is dark ahead, but you walk it anyway, the music still humming in your chest like a heartbeat. The path grows steeper as night falls, the earth rising in gentle hills that leave your legs aching and your breath ragged. You pause at the crest of a small ridge, the village lights behind you flickering like embers in the dark. Ahead, the land falls away into shadow fields and forests, stretching out like a promise, or maybe a threat. You remember the tales whispered around hearth fire show. An adulterous wife could bring ruin not just on herself, but on the entire household. A woman's betrayal was said to echo through the walls of castles and cottages alike, a threat to the very bloodlines that held kingdoms together. A mainstream historical fact to steady your thoughts. In noble courts across medieval Europe, adultery wasn't just a sin, it was treason. A wife who strayed risked more than just her reputation. She risked the stability of her husband's line, the inheritance of sons not truly his. And in those high halls, betrayal was met with the cold edge of steel, or the final weight of the noose. A fringe tidbit to make you shiver. In some courts, a noblewoman accused of adultery could be locked away in a tower, her only company the cold stones and the slow drip of water from the walls. A silent punishment, but a cruel one all the same. Historians still argue whether these punishments were truly about honor or simply the fear of a man's pride. Some say they were a desperate attempt to keep bloodlines pure, to guard the fragile towers of power. Others see them as a way to remind every woman that her body was not hers alone, it was a piece of the kingdom itself. You walk on, the night deep and still, the stars bright above you. The wind whispers through the trees, a soft chorus that makes you think of the courtly songs you heard as a girl ballads of knights and ladies, of love that defied the world. But you know now that those stories were written by men, for men. In those songs, a woman's love was a prize, not a choice. Her body, a symbol, her heart, a tool. A small, bitter joke flickers in your mind. At least I'm not a lady of the court, no tapestries to tell my story, no minstrels to sing my shame. But the thought is as cold as the night air, and you let it drift away. You pass a crumbling milestone, its carved letters worn smooth by time. You pause to rest your hand on the stone, feeling the roughness beneath your fingers. You wonder how many women before you have touched this same marker, how many have walked this same path with the weight of their choices heavy on their shoulders. A final thought as you move on. In a world where a woman's betrayal could bring down a kingdom, it was never really about love, it was about power. About who held it, who lost it, and who paid the price when it slipped through their fingers. You keep walking, your steps steady, your breath a quiet rhythm in the dark. The road ahead is long, but is yours alone. And that, at least, is a kind of power they can't take from you. The night deepens as you walk, the road ahead lit only by the pale light of the moon. You can see the faint outline of a chapel spire in the distance, a promise of sanctuary, or a reminder of the promises you've broken. It's hard to tell. You think of the confessional, that small, dark box where sins are whispered and absolution is promised. In another life, you might have knelt there, your words falling like stones from your lips, each one a piece of the shame that clings to you. But tonight, the confessional is a memory, a distant dream that seems as unreachable as the stars. A mainstream historical fact to settle your thoughts. In medieval Europe, the confessional was both a refuge and a trap. For women like you, confession could be a chance to unburden your soul or a doorway to even deeper punishment. The church held the power to forgive, but it also held the power to condemn. A fringe tidbit to make you pause. Some confessors, driven by zeal or curiosity, would press and pry, their questions as sharp as the brand on your skin. They wanted every detail, every secret sin laid bare. And for a woman already marked, those questions could be another kind of punishment. Historians still argue whether the confessional was truly a place of mercy or simply another stage for the performance of shame. Some see it as a balm for wounded souls. Others see it as a theater of guilt, a way to keep women bound to a system that thrived on their silence. You reach a small wayside shrine, a statue of the Virgin gazing down with serene eyes. You pause, your fingers tracing the cold stone of her robes. You wonder if she sees you, if she hears the confession that beats in your chest even now, a sin you've already paid for 100 times over. A small, quiet joke flickers in your mind. If she's listening, she must be tired of hearing the same story. But the thought fades into the hush of the night, and you bow your head, not in prayer, but in the simple act of remembering. You stand there for a long moment, the night pressing close around you, the cold seeping into your bones. You think of the confessional's darkness, the hush of the priest's voice, the way even your breath sounded guilty in that small, silent box. You think of the words you might have said, the forgiveness you might have begged for if you still believed it could be given. A final thought as you step away from the shrine. In a world that measured your worth in silence and obedience, the confessional was never really about forgiveness. It was about control, about who got to decide when you'd suffered enough, when your shame was finally washed clean. You walk on, the path winding through the darkness, your breath a soft rhythm in the cold night air. Each step is a quiet prayer, not for forgiveness, but for the strength to keep moving. Because you know now that the only mercy you'll find is the mercy you carry in your own heart. Dawn comes slowly, the sky paling to a soft gray as you walk. The road stretches ahead, empty and quiet, the world holding its breath in that fragile hour between night and day. You're tired bone, tired, so tired, but you keep moving because there's nothing else to do. Because stopping would mean letting the weight of it all pull you under. You pass a broken milestone, half buried in the dirt, the letters worn away by time and weather. You pause, your hand brushing over the stone, and you think of all the women who have walked this road before you, their footsteps echoing in the silence of the dawn. A mainstream historical fact to steady your thoughts. In the final reckoning, the punishments you've suffered branding, ducking, the bridle weren't just about your sin. They were about the community, about the way your shame was meant to cleanse theirs. A spectacle of suffering to make them feel safer, purer, better. A fringe tidbit to make you shiver. In some places, a woman's punishment didn't end with the brand or the bridle. She was forced to stand at the church door every Sunday, barefoot and silent, her head bowed in a silent confession that never ended, a living relic of sin and forgiveness, a cautionary tale in flesh and bone. Historians still argue whether these final humiliations were acts of piety or just another way to keep women like you in your place. Some say they were about redemption, about proving your worth in the eyes of God and man. Others see them as a final cruelty, a way to make sure you never forgot, never healed, never stood straight again. You think of the brand on your skin, the memory of the iron's kiss. You think of the bridle, the iron biting into your mouth, forcing silence on you even as your mind screamed. You think of the ducking stool, the cold water stealing your breath, the weight of the world pressing you down, and you wonder if the final humiliation would have been the worst of all, standing there, week after week, your shame a Sunday ritual. A small, grim joke flickers in your mind. At least they'd have let me out of the bridle for church. But the humor is as thin as the dawn light, and you let it fade. You walk on, your feet tracing the worn path through the fields. The earth is soft beneath your steps, the new grass damp with dew. You think of the village you left behind, the names you'll never hear again, the doors that will never open for you. And you wonder if the world is big enough to hold all the women like you, the ones who paid the price for a single moment of defiance, of desire. A final thought as the sun crests the hills warm on your face. In a world that measured a woman's worth by the weight of her shame, there is a quiet power in refusing to bow your head, in taking each step as your own, even when the world wants you to crawl. You walk on, the sun rising behind you, your shadow long and thin on the road ahead. Each breath is a small act of rebellion, each step a promise that no matter what they've taken, you are still here, still moving, still free in the only way that matters. The sun rises fully now, the sky a wash of pale gold and blue. You keep walking, the warmth of the new day on your shoulders, each step carrying you further from the world that tried to break you. Your feet are sore, your back aches, but the rhythm of the road is steady and Sharia, quiet comfort that no brand, no shame can steal from you. You pass a small farmhouse, the smoke from the chimney curling into the morning sky. A woman stands at the doorway, her hands busy with a basket of eggs. She looks up as you pass, her eyes meeting yours for a brief moment. She doesn't speak, but there's something in her gaze, a flicker of understanding, or maybe just a silent wish that your path will be kinder than hers. A mainstream historical fact to anchor your thoughts. In the centuries that followed, the punishments for adultery began to fade. The pillories rotted away, the ducking stools sank into the silt of forgotten ponds, and the scold's bridles rusted in the corners of old barns. But the memory of them lingered, a quiet echo in the way women were taught to fear their own hearts. A fringe tidbit to make you smile, if only for a moment. In some villages, the last of the old punishments became curiosity's relics of another age. A ducking stool turned into a garden bench. A bridle hung on the wall of a tavern, its iron mouth open in silent laughter. Historians still argue whether these relics are reminders of a past best forgotten or warnings of how easily cruelty can wear the mask of justice. Some say they're testaments to how far we've come. Others see them as a quiet thread of promise that what was once can be again. You walk on, the road winding through fields of wildflowers, the scent of them sweet and sharp in the warm air. You think of all the women who walked this road before you, their footsteps lost in the dust, but their spirits still here, still whispering in the hush of the wind. A small, weary joke flickers in your mind. At least the wildflowers don't care what I've done. And in that moment, you let yourself smile, just a little, the first true smile in what feels like a lifetime. The road bends ahead, disappearing into the bright horizon. You know you'll keep walking, because you must, because there's nothing else to do. But you also know that each step is yours alone, a quiet act of defiance in a world that wanted you to kneel. A final thought as you walk into the light. In a world that measured your worth in shame and silence, you have found your own measure. It's not in the brand on your skin or the whisper of your name in the mouths of strangers sits. In the quiet strength that carried you here, the steady beat of your heart, the soft whisper of your breath in the bright morning air. You walk on, the sun warm on your skin, the road unfolding like a promise ahead of you. And in that promise, you find the first taste of freedom. The road softens beneath your feet, the morning light painting everything in soft gold. You slow your steps, letting the hush of the world settle over your shoulders like a gentle cloak. The air is warm and still, and each breath feels like a small Blasinga quiet promise that there is life beyond the brand, beyond the bridle, beyond the cold waters of punishment. The memories of the pillory, the ducking stool, the scold's bridle, they drift like autumn leaves in your mind, each one a sharp edge softened by time. They are part of you now, but they do not own you. You let them settle like dust on old stone, a part of your story but not the whole of it. You lift your face to the sun, the warmth seeping into your skin, and you feel the tightness in your chest begin to ease. The road ahead is long, but it is yours to walk. Each step a quiet act of defiance, a soft promise that you will not be undone by the weight of what has been done to you. The world is quiet in this moment, the only sound, the gentle sigh of the wind in the grass, the soft murmur of your own breath. You let that stillness wrap around you, a balm for the bruises on your soul, a lullaby for the restless beat of your heart. You keep walking, each step slow and deliberate, the weight of the past growing lighter with every breath. The dawn is soft and bright, the road ahead a ribbon of possibility. and in that gentle light, you find the first sweet taste of peace. End of script. Sweet dreams.